And despite the new year, headlines have been packed with hard-hitting and not so positive news.
Arnitta Holliman with the Office of Violent Prevention joins us today. We appreciate your time. Thanks for being here, Arnitta. We have seen, millions watched yesterday what unfolded on Capitol Hill. It's burned into our memories. It's making people sad and depressed. We've talked to you a lot about coping mechanisms. This is another thing we're going to need to cope with.
Absolutely. And watching the events unfold can be not just difficult to watch, but also can be very traumatizing for people who are looking at it from the lens of, racial injustice and systemic injustices, for those who have, protested for, for peace and for justice. To see how things unfolded can be very difficult, and just for anyone who's watching an attempt to thwart our democracy. And so we want to be mindful of, how we're internalizing what we're seeing.
Yeah, it was pretty hard not to internalize what we saw yesterday. Arnitta, a lot of kids witnessed that, and a lot of parents are wondering, okay, we'd never see this in this country, very rarely to that extent. How do we comfort our kids, and what do we tell them, especially kids of color who might be frightened knowing that many of these groups were white supremacists?
That's a great question, Carol. The first thing is helping children to know that they're safe. And I think that's something that we all need. And safety is not just physical, but it's also psychological and emotional. And so helping them to get grounded and get clear on the fact that they are safe, helping them understand that they are. And then talking to them, letting them ask questions about how they're feeling, what they've seen, and getting a good understanding of how it's impacting them, and then explaining it to them in a way that helps them understand what happened, but staying away from the good-bad dichotomy in terms of who are the good people, who are the bad people, but that there are some things that people do that can be wrong. And that's what you were seeing. And so explaining it in that way can be helpful.
Any suggestions on how people can deal with anger? People get angry when they see things, either things that they don't like or things that they do agree with, and the other side doesn't agree with them, and you just get so emotionally invested in one side versus the other side on these issues. How do you step away and take that deep breath?
Yeah, good question, Charles. One thing is just recognizing that it's okay to be angry, right? And so anger is an emotion, but it's a secondary emotion. And that primary emotion that we usually are feeling, or what's underneath that, is just hurt. It's hurt, or the disappointment or fear. And so we want to get to the root of what really is going on behind that anger, and make sure that we are channeling that anger in healthy ways. So if that's fighting, for justice in terms of policy, or in other ways getting involved, but also taking time to bring yourself back into the space and being mindful about where you are, what's going on, to kind of calm the anger down. But using it for good is not a bad thing, but definitely channeling it in a way that will be healthy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also, the minute you start to feel it physically, it's not good. So just do something and think of all the great people out there. Arnitta Holliman, we always appreciate your insight from the Office of Violence Prevention. Thank you again for being with us on our news at 3:30. And we want to remind